All right, welcome back. So this is going to be the last video I'm doing in this kind of recording session. I'm doing, 3 or 4 in a bunch as I go through these kind of topics. So this one is going to be on an introduction to triangles and code comments. All right, so I have this code up from before in my last video. I'm going to just duplicate it real quick. So we get the copy here, like I mentioned. I'm just going to rename this, and I'm going to make it triangles and comments. All right. So I have this right here. So in the video so far, I've shown you all just kind of the different elements in the P5 web editor. I've shown you all the ways to, you're making the canvas and setting the locations in the X and Y parameter by pixels, by giving the function arguments. We're setting colors with the strings as arguments in the fill and background function inside of draw, which happens over and over again. And I've shown you all that there's a rectangle function and an ellipse function that both take at least 4 arguments, and those are the X and Y position that the computer starts drawing the shape from, as well as how wide and tall to make the shape based on that original position. So if I run the code, again, we have the X and Y position in terms of the number of pixels over from the top left and then down to start drawing the rectangle, and then how wide and tall to make the shape from that point. And then with the ellipse, we have how, how over from that top left to draw the shape, how far down in the amount of pixels, and then how wide and tall the shape is as a whole. All right. So what I want to introduce before I get into the triangle is the idea of code comments. So what the code comment is essentially a set of characters in your code that can go in, and your computer essentially just ignores that line of code when it sees it. So that way you can leave messages to yourself. You can pull out things from your code real quick to see if they're working or not. You can type things out. Essentially, you can type whatever you want. The computer is just going to ignore these values. Okay, so to do that, I want to get rid of one of these rectangles just to try and free up some space. So I'm going to get rid of this yellow one. So there's 2 different ways we can do code comments. The first is with the 2 / command. All right, you notice that this line has now been grayed out by our code editor. All right. So if I go in and pull that back, it now is colored in again, and the computer is now setting that value to yellow before drawing the rectangle. If I put the 2 slashes back again, it's now no longer setting that value, that fill value, to yellow, because it sees the 2 slashes and it skips over it, over this line. So we just have draw this rectangle, and then we're going to set it to pink and draw the circle. So we have that there. I actually want to get rid of that whole shape, so I'm going to comment out both lines by hitting the 2 slashes right there. So again, this is a useful technique you can do just for pulling something out really fast and seeing whether or not something is broken that way. There are some other things you can do, other ways to make comments. One, if you want to have a comment that goes over multiple areas, you can. Let's see if it is. I always get these backwards. Yeah, okay. So it is the slash and then the asterisk. And then is the asterisk followed by the slash. They're opposite each other. And you can have a comment section that takes up multiple lines. The 2 slashes are only good for that single line or the remainder of that line that you have it on. Whereas if you see this slash asterisk and then the asterisk slash, everything in between those will be commented out. So I'm going to still get rid of that because I've commented out the whole draw function, so we didn't actually see anything. So we have that there. I do want to say another thing you can do. There's a shortcut. If you highlight, click and drag to highlight stuff, and you hit either Command or Control, depending on whether or not you're on a Mac or a Windows computer. But you say, I'm going to say Command, and then that slash button, which is also the question mark key. And it will automatically take anything that's highlighted and comment it out with those 2 slashes. So you can hit that and toggle whether or not something is commented, like I'm doing right now, just by hitting that over and over again. I'm going to pull that back, though, because without this create canvas, we get some problems in our code. So we have that there. All right, so that's that. So these comments are useful for different things. So like if I wanted to leave myself a comment, this is the setting the color of the canvas background. So you can, leave yourself, little, this is what this is doing. This is XYZ, blah, blah, blah. So that way, whenever you have codes that are much longer and much more complex, you can see very clearly, oh, this is controlling this is controlling that. So that way you or some other person looking at your code can very easily say, oh, now I understand what's going on. Thank you very much. It's very helpful, and it's essentially the common practice to add code comments. I know when I teach this course, I often make it a requirement for several assignments to include code comments in the program. Otherwise, the students will get points off, because it is a wonderful technique to get into. Again, it's overall very helpful. Another thing that is commonly done is adding attribution to your comments. So if I do /*, and you notice everything blanks out until you get that */ again. And this is just to say who made the code or other stuff in it. So if I were to say code by me, and I work at Louisiana State University, and I made this in 2020. I've got there. So you can list that out there. If someone, if I had an image or another sound source, I could list it there to give those creators credit. If I wanted to utilize someone else's code, I would give them accreditation here. Things like that. It's just, it's not mandatory to do, because anything posted on P5 is open source. So I could find anyone could find anyone else's account, go through their codes and find them and copy them, and they don't have to give attribution. However, frankly, it's just nice to do, because you're giving people credit for stuff. And it's a good habit to get into, because anytime you do something outside of P5, you want to give credit for things that people have made, because you don't want to you don't want to assume that you made something when someone else made it, and then you get plagiarism and copyright issues. Then it gets into an even worse deal if you make money off of something someone else made, and lawsuits can happen. It's just my advice, just always give credit. It saves so much time, so much hassle. Just do it. Do it in your code comments, so that way it won't affect your code. And then there you go. As a teacher, I'll a lot of times give my students starting codes, and I'll give them instructions in the in code comments up at the top. So by like for do, and then have them do so and so, and give them all the information right there in the top of the code. So again, that's something that could be useful for everyone to do. So that there. So that's the two main ways to go in and do code comments, as well as the shortcut, this Command or Control / will just automatically comment wherever your cursor is or whatever is highlighted that way. So that's good. That's a great thing to do. I also mentioned that we're going to talk about triangles. Triangles are I'll say, interesting shape. They behave a little bit differently than some of the other shapes that we use in this course. So let me start off. I'm going to make this triangle green. There we are. One thing I do want to point out, in order to have a string, you can either have the double or the single quotes, as long as it matches. I'm actually going to put these two double quotes just so it matches everything else in here. But again, it's up to you. I think the double quotes look a little better because then you can also use an asterisk in there. So if I wanted to have something, a string that for some reason had that, I could put in that asterisk without closing off my string. Just a little thing to add right there. Okay, so triangles. All right. So what's different compared to the rectangle and the ellipse with a triangle? You'll notice that in the console here, we're getting the error that triangle was expecting at least 6 arguments, but received only 0. So it requires more numbers to type out than the rectangle does. Each of these numbers control one corner of the triangle. All right, so think of it like a set of coordinate pairs for each corner of the triangle. So let me start off with 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Got that right there. So we don't actually see anything now because these are all the same. But we have 6 numbers here. So we have a 1 pair right there, another pair, and another pair. So the first, third, and fifth value are all x coordinates for each corner. The second, fourth, and sixth are all the y coordinates, so the vertical ones, for that same corner. So if I was to set this to 0 and 100, I don't know if you could see it, but we're now starting to get a line up here. The computer is going to just fill in the triangle inside of these shapes. So if I was to then set this to, let's say, 300 and 300. I'll make it 300, 300. Boom. Fills in. These are the coordinates, 300, 300 for that shape, 0, 100 for that corner, 0, 0 for this one. Let me adjust this and make this 40, 400. Boom. And it fills it in like that. I'm going to adjust this last one as well and make it 370 and 300. Put it down, put the shape down below the other ones. So we have that right there. So this is great for getting very, very specific and custom shapes made with the triangle function, in the sense of you are picking the manual coordinates for each corner of the shape. Where it becomes a little more difficult than the others is just with the way that these are coded. I can adjust the position and move the entire shape of these ellipses and rectangles as a whole. So if I wanted to make this, 50 and 70, it shifts the whole shape over because it's still saying draw it 100 over and 100 down from this point. It just happens to be that this point changed, so it shifts the whole shape. Same thing with the circle. If I was to make this 100, 100, again, it's still making it 50 wide and 50 tall, no matter what, but we're just adjusting that starting point. Each of these 3 pairs are independent of each other. So if you wanted to move the entire shape up by 50 pixels, you would have to adjust all of the y coordinate values and make them 50 less. So to do that, I would have to say 250, 250, 250. And now I'm sorry, I did that wrong. So these started off by bat, so it'd have to be 300, and then change the 300 to 250, change the 400 to 350, and so on. So now we have the exact same shape, only we've shifted it up 50 pixels. And we had to adjust 3 numbers. And you can see it can be very easy just to goof that up like I just did. We had to adjust these 3 numbers instead of just adjusting the 1 for the other 2 shapes. So it has some drawbacks, some advantages. We'll get used to using all of them over the course of this class, but I just wanted to kind of introduce that as a shape. One technique I will almost always do is to add in a comment right before my triangle and say what the points are in the order, because the computer kind of arbitrarily will just read these and say, okay, stick a point here, stick a point here, stick a point here, and fill it in as a triangle. However, that they're independent of each other. So if I was to change this, I'm going to copy this and put this at the end, and then get rid of it here. Now I've changed the order of these pairs, but we still have the exact same shape because, again, the pairs are independent of each other. So I will put this in here and just say what the order is. So if I say 300, 250 is going to be this coordinate right here. And actually, I'm going to lower this just a little bit. And so this will be the top. And then next we have 40, 350. So I'll say this is the right point. And then the very last one will... I'm sorry, that's not right. That's left. I swear, I know my basic directions, I swear. And then this one will be the right/short point. Just giving some kind of indication of what the orders are. So now once I have my shape here, I can very easily say, oh, I want this to not be as long. I can say, okay, which one is this point? Oh, that's the left one here. Okay, it goes top, left, right. So the left one is this middle one. So I can say I don't want that to be as long. Let's make that, move that over to the right, and then boom, I can very intuitively figure out which pair of numbers I need to adjust each specific point on the triangle. So that's why another way comments can be helpful, because this is not going to affect your code at any point. The computer is just going to skip line 22. But you, as the editor, can look at it and say, oh, this is a message from myself or whoever made the triangle saying this is the order of the points. And in fact, if you just wanted to say, and just to do that, it just makes it super clear of, oh, that's what these are. Boom, this one is top, this one is the left, this one is the right. And then there you go. And you can just go in and it will eliminate any guesswork in terms of which one or two of these you might need to edit in order to fix your shape to be what you want or need it to be. And because it's doing that, it will eliminate accidentally, say I wanted to change that same point, but I accidentally adjusted this first value and made it, 30, and was not able to, I kept trying to put it back, but couldn't quite get it to line up. Well, since I have this on line 22 that's telling me what the order is, I can avoid potentially, now it's close, it's not quite right, and then my stuff won't look how I want it to. So that just, again, eliminates mistakes, eliminates guesswork, things like that. All right, and now this is bugging me just a little bit. So I want my... close enough. Anyways, basically what I'm getting around with this is I've moved around my shapes a little bit. I'm just going to actually make them not overlap at all. Try to put them in the middle. I'm getting distracted and rambling because I've been doing this for over an hour now. But kind of to leave you all with maybe a little bit of a practice is now, if you've been going along with me, you've got a triangle on your screen as well. I want you to go in and play around with the different corners, positions, make sure everything has a unique color like we've done before. And then what I want you all to do is make your canvas bigger. And so on and like that, and then add in an additional square, circle, and triangle. Make them all separate colors from these here, and just put them somewhere else on the canvas so they don't overlap. And then label everything with comments. That's just to leave you all with an assignment to do after watching this video. So we have all of that there. So here you are. Have a nice day. I will see you in the next